Hello, my name is Jenny. So, a lot of you guys have already been following me and my stories and my daughter's stories on Facebook and the crazy everything that is our life. Um, I'm super nervous about talking and recording things, so I apologize beforehand for any stuttering or lags in my stories. But, anyways, getting back on topic. I wanted to go ahead and start telling the full stories of everything that happens, not just the funny ones, but the ones that actually hit home and the struggles that I've gone through to be a single parent and survive the hurricane that is my daughter. And in order to do that, I figured I would start from the very beginning of how I got to where I'm at in the life that I live and why I raised my child the way I do. So I hope that you guys enjoy it, and I'm going to go ahead and jump into that. So I never should have survived my birth. Hell, it was a miracle I was conceived in the first place, but statistics have always been in my favor. I was born in the dead of winter, and I entered the world prematurely. The weather outside was stormy and cold, but I was told that it had a certain mystical kind of beauty to it, which seems to be a really fitting setting for the life that was to become mine eventually. I'd like to say that I came into the world with a roar, letting the universe know that I was ready, but in truth, it was barely a whisper and a really pathetic one at that. I was born half dead, split between the worlds, and the doctors had little hope that I was going to even make it through the light and through the night, let alone into my life and a functioning adult. I was quiet, I was lethargic. That was probably due to the 6 different illegal narcotics that were coursing through my system. My mother did not care what she shoved into her, not even a little bit. Some people thought it was my lack of will to survive, but that's not actually my story. My mother was too out of her mind to care about this fact that the state had taken her child. She was coherent enough to tell the doctors that my father had AIDS, so that was awesome, and that I would need to be tested. I was small, like I stated, I was extremely small. Newborn clothes hung off of me, so the doctors and the nurses went out and collected doll clothes instead to put on me because it was the only thing that didn't just hang off me like a bag. I was super quiet. I never cried. I didn't fuss. I just kind of watched the world around me. The doctors believe this was probably due to the drugs and the extreme withdrawals that I was going through, and that it might have caused permanent brain damage. I was put into the foster care, and at the time the foster care system was extremely off balance. There was too many kids, too many babies needing homes, and not enough families willing to take them in. Even the babies were ending up in group homes. It was a mess. Out of the entire city of Chicago, there was one couple available to foster an infant at the time. It was a young Caucasian couple who had been desperately wanting a little boy. So there I was at the hospital, small little black baby who was already technically a heavy drug addict, probably had AIDS, and likely to be special or have some form of mental retardation. I was roomed next to this other adorable little baby boy who was a healthy blue-eyed Caucasian. He was not waiting on AIDS test, and he didn't have any issues and was not going through withdrawals. So the choice of which child to take home was pretty obvious, but if you remember my earlier statement, statistics have always been in my favor, and the day they came to pick up their little boy, they left with me instead. The little girl who would end up becoming their future daughter, and also who ended up testing negative for AIDS. So yay on that. When I look back on this and my stories and my life, I feel that my beginnings in childhood created something in me that is always reaching out to others and wanting to help. I wanted to be the light that people could follow into a brighter place, as I had very little of that in my own life. My motherly instinct was nurtured by the love of my father that he constantly enveloped me in and built on. And I know you're probably expecting one of those stereotypical Grass to Graces stories, but that's not my story either. Mine is constant storms and struggles, but there's always a silver lining. I've always looked on the bright side of things, and I've never let anything get me down or hold me back. Even when my house was burning down to the ground, we went and bought marshmallows to roast on the fire, because when are you ever going to get a bonfire that size? But that's a different story for another time. So yeah, the storm at my birth was a really good premonition of the struggles and the craziness that would later invade my life. I would grow from a premature baby to a hyperactive child. My father was a huge figure in my life, And my mother, well, she was jealous of my relationship I had with my father and a lot of other things, and is a very narcissistic personality. So that was interesting growing up with as well. Unfortunately, my father would pass away when I was about 8, and that would throw me from my adventurous, free going child into the full time mother role where I would have to mother my own mother, my 2 siblings, her string of boyfriends, and their children that came along with the mix. Eventually, I would get to travel the world, but that would also come with some more issues where I would battle family, then I would have a battle with CPS, lots of building and losing relationships, struggles with finances, and eventually giving up my second child for adoption. But after that, and the most important part of this entire story, is finding complete and utter happiness. Okay, so I can see and I know you guys are completely rolling your eyes at that last statement, but that's kind of why I wanted to start this page and everything and talk about how I got to where I'm at. So, in my crazy journey of a life, I have learned there are better ways to perceive and handle things that we don't like to talk about. Motherhood being one of them. Mental health issues, postpartum depression, adoption, you name it. There's a whole slew of things that we don't like to talk about and that have this elusiveness when we speak on them, and almost like a stench that comes along with most of them. So we shove them in the closet and we don't deal with them. But that's really not healthy and not the way to go about it. From my past experiences, I have become aware of the fact that people need to reorient themselves on these topics and how we discuss them, and that they're okay to be talked about. And if you are going through something, it doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean you're a failure. It doesn't mean that you don't deserve help and that you shouldn't be able to get it. Motherhood is another one of those big topics that comes with a whole slew of things, and no one really talks about how to survive it. It's just one of those, oh, you're a mom, good luck, and figure it out. You no longer get to whine or complain. You chose motherhood, so suck it up. And that really kind of sucks for a lot of us, because sometimes we need a hug, we need some help other than, well, you chose that, deal with it. I remember at the time when I was going through the adoption process with my second child that my mother had found out and had told anyone who would listen the entire story of everything. I wasn't really talking to her at this point, but she had found it anyways and was so happy to gossip about it. And I found out and cried for weeks. I just sat down and crumpled into this little tiny little ball and just cried because I didn't want anyone to know that I was putting up my child for adoption. I didn't even want anyone to know that I had a second child that I was considering putting up for adoption. I was horribly depressed, I was lost, and I had no idea what I was going to do with my life at the time. I was just fresh out of a divorce, and it was a disaster. Eventually I realized that what I was doing, it wasn't awful. I was not an awful parent. I wasn't this horrible thing, and that I was doing the best I could for my child at the time to give them the life that I knew they deserved that I couldn't give them no matter what I did. I wasn't in that spot, I wasn't in that position, and it wasn't going to happen. So I made a very hard decision to go ahead and find someone who could give them the life that I wanted them to have, knowing that it wasn't going to be me. And it wasn't something I should be ashamed of. When I look at it, that's what a parent is supposed to do. They're supposed to protect their kid and give them everything that they can, even if it's not them. And as you can see, it's still kind of a touchy, rough subject for me, but it needs to be discussed for other people. I've been talking on it more, and I've been discussing other life issues and things I've been having with other people and other women, and I realize there are others who feel the same way as me that are going through almost the exact same, if not worse, situation that I've been through and having similar feelings. From feeling inadequate about raising children to being horrible parents to going through adoptions, abortions, a whole bunch of different things. And often we're told that we're wrong, we're failures as parents, and even if we dare to suggest that we need help or that we're not okay, we're crucified. We all look at these areas in ways that we shouldn't, and it's something that needs to change. It's not a healthy outlook. So those are the things that I am going to discuss on my channel, along with all the crazy antics that ensue. So welcome, and I hope you find comfort in my tales as I tell you about the times I sailed around the world in a boat that I had absolutely no clue how to sail, how I broke free of my narcissistic family, how I couldn't do anything but laugh at the time my child literally took a dump on my bed and painted the sheets with it, how I divorced my millionaire husband because he sucked at comforting me, and the times I've cried in the shower for several minutes to recompose myself, to walk back out into whatever party or shindig I was at like nothing happened, and that my whole world was fine and that it wasn't literally falling around on top of my head. But like I said, through all of this and all the craziness, I did find happiness. Still working through a couple of things here and there, but for the most part, generally, I'm good. I'm happy. My family's good. I'm raising a brilliant child who is become the household story of many people with all of her antics and the amazing and yet chaotic things that she does. So that's all I have for this video, and I hope you enjoy it.